The following podcast contains some strong language and adult themes. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. What's
Ladies.
up and we said, what's up, ladies? What's up, ladies?
Ladies. What's up, guys? Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe.
Oh my God. Why do
See
you
you
do
next episode.
Welcome to One More Good Thing, the show where we talk about one good thing, just a little more. Today on the show, as always, is Ted Dudez.
Hello, everyone, and I hope you're doing well. My real name is Theodore.
Is that a true fact?
No, it's Edward.
Oh man,
But
I was hoping you'd say like, and I could wait. I'm Ted Theodore Logan, and together we're Wild Stallions. No,
I feel like every other podcast you make the noise you just made.
I have a whole podcast that's called.
Every time you do a song, you're like, the song goes.
No, I nailed the last one. There were people in the chat that knew exactly what song I was talking about, and they were all on board.
Peaches.
I think it was.
I'm sorry.
I think it was doon 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 doon, and it's a Doors song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a break on through to the other side. That's what it was.
Break on through to the other side. Ooh, my lips are chapped.
Well, this is a midday recording of the podcast, which means you get a version of Ed and Drew that only few people see. Is that fair?
Yes. And I'm switching our cameras again. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
We did it last time, and I'm trying to get it to where I can see you, and I'm not staring at me. Okay.
Yeah, it does make it better. So, quick question for you. I recently went, I don't know if you ever do this. Do you ever go dumpster diving into your past?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Daily. All the time.
Now, does that ever include dumpster diving into your past for like past creative work or music or any of that kind of stuff? Do you ever go back to any of your past?
Yeah, I guess so. I think about it a lot with music because I like finding music. I lost one of my, what do you call it? Not an iPod. Yeah, I lost my iPod from. Was that funny? Because I couldn't come up with that because I heard a little sniffle.
No. I was laughing because the idea that an iPod, we're so far removed from it now. But at one point, it was central to our lives. And now we're removed from it because we don't use iPods and everything's streaming now. Like we stream everything.
Oh, yeah. You had to have, you didn't have to, but it was amazing having one. And then I remember having one in high school. It's like, gosh, I'm not feeling this vibe right now. I'm going to get so far into my emotions with this emo music right now.
Oh, so then you switched over to a Zune?
A Zune. What's a Zune? I don't even know what that is.
That was the Microsoft version.
Oh, really? Weird.
Yeah.
I'm like a Microsoft guy now too, which is funny, but I didn't know what that was until you just said it.
Yeah. I think there's maybe Ted. I almost said Ted Cruz. Not on purpose.
Oh goodness.
Not on purpose, but I was gonna say hey guys,
this episode we're gonna cover politics and just piss off half of everyone.
I was gonna say Ted Dudez, but somewhere there's a Ted Dudez who's like the Zune of Ed Dudez. So he's like the knockoff version.
Ted Dudez in St. Louis is an amazing ice cream joint.
I have to share something with you.
Okay.
Guys, we're going to get to the point of the show here in a minute. I went to a place not far from your home called Wits. Have you been to Wits?
Wits? No.
Sir, it was as close to Ted Dudez. I've had Ted Dudez. I've stood in line after a St. Louis baseball game and in the cold, in the cool, and waited for some Ted Dudez. And that is the best ice cream I've ever had or custard I've ever had in entire life. It's kosher. It's amazing. It's perfect. There's a place in Daphne, Alabama called Wits. And it is as close to, and you guys could drive up, you go through the drive-through. It is absolutely mind-blowingly good.
So are you more of a this leads me to another thing. Are you a dessert guy, or are you more of a I'd rather have another cheeseburger guy?
Ooh. I thought you were just going to tee it up for like, or are you like a not dessert guy? So I'm glad you looked at my shape and said, this guy definitely eats. It's true.
Salty or sweet? I think that's more what it comes down to.
I'm a savory guy, so I like both together.
Really? See, that's not always my favorite.
So if I eat salty, then I have to follow it with sweet, which then makes me want salty, which then follows it with sweet, which means I just get in a perpetual loop of doom.
Perpetual loop of doom.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
what are you? Are you a salty or sweet guy?
Oh, I'm salty all the time. Well, I'm salty all the time. Yeah, no, I like I have my desserts that I like. Tiramisu is one of them. Baklava. I dig baklava. Mama's dirt pudding, but other than that, I'm pretty much instead of that, I'd rather have a taco. I'm a big salt. I put soy sauce and hot sauce and all that stuff on everything.
I'm totally with you. I get it. I'm not knocking it. I just I don't know. It just depends, man. Mine is, I do enjoy dessert, but I don't eat a lot of dessert. So if that's the preference, then I'd probably fall more towards salty than sweet in that category.
Yeah. Now I do remember, and I just thought of was it blackberry cobbler that we talked about?
That's correct.
So I just remembered sometimes those summer days when you'd have strawberry shortcake.
Oh yeah, boy.
That I could get down with some of that.
Sarah made it recently, or she didn't. She cheated. Sarah makes a fantastic sponge cake, angel food cake, which is how I had it growing up. I'd never had it on like the little round strawberry shortcake gimmicks.
Angel food cake. Yeah.
Yeah. So hers was, I always grew up with angel food cake. It's my favorite cake, by the way. And so Sarah makes a really good one. But until I was an adult is when I had a first like real strawberry shortcake. And I was like, well, this isn't the same. It was great. But it was, and it's back to that episode where we talked about your memory. And it's funny because your taste buds are associated with your memory, and then you go down that path, and your memory lies to you a lot.
Well, I'm curious with your question too about going back to your past. How much time do you spend going? Because I know my answer, and it's but how much time would you say of your time spent going to the past, if you go to it, is spent going to it for good things versus bad?
Oh, it's interesting. So, most of the time, so I'm not a very nostalgic person. Not like I want my kids to live it like that episode. Not that style. I don't like to go back to my past because it makes me uncomfortable. So there's things in there that are uncomfortable about my past, things I don't want to deal with, So some of it I would say is to your question. Some of it is non-beneficial and some of it is beneficial. So I'll go back and visit it if I feel like I'm going to gain something from it. But as soon as I start to feel like it pulls in this darkness that comes from that, then I abandon. I jump ship.
How do you stop it? Because I'm real bad at going back and getting stuck in it. So I think maybe a good question is, how do you kind of reset your brain to get back where you need to be?
So if it's music, so a lot of mine's music, auditory driven. I jump ship and change to a completely different style of music. I make myself get away from it. If I go down the visual content, which is what triggered me wanting to ask that question for you. When I go down the visual content side, I try to make sure to, I just have to clear my mind. I purge it. So like I purge that image, whatever it was, I do the best I can to get away from it. And I jump on to something else that brings me joy. Like a focus in. It's almost like, do you remember the movie Inception? Do you remember that movie?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like when I go down there, I have a totem. In this case, it's a golf ball, but I have a totem that's there to remind me to pull myself back out. Like it's my wake up. And so once I do that, and usually it's another image, depends on what it is. And then I'll bring myself back out of it. But I get it. It's easy to get lost in it. But my question for you then would be, are you getting lost in the pain or are you getting lost in the memory?
Maybe I think the reason I do it a lot of the times is to understand or try and make sense or understand why things were the way they were, or I like fixing things, and I like fixing people. And I don't mean that I can fix all people, but I want to fix them if they're hurting in some way or something, or if someone's done something, say maybe wrong to me or something, I want to figure out. Basically, I hyper analyze it and try and figure out what I did maybe wrong to deserve it or to cause it, and then I get into a hole like that, and then I try and tell myself, well, it's not my fault, but it still doesn't fix that need for me to understand why it happened.
Right.
And I think that's unanswered questions from my past that maybe I'll never get answers for, is something I like to complete tasks, and I like, if there's an issue, I like to fix it very quickly. I think you and I have talked about this before. We got an issue, let's rip the Band-Aid or go in the backyard and get it done and move forward as people, and
Right.
I don't think a lot of people are like that, or maybe they are. I don't know. I think humans are very, very interesting. I remember, as a kid, you get in an argument with your friend or your neighbor or whatever, your parents kind of come around, hopefully, and they're like, okay, you say sorry, you both screwed up, wipe your faces off and get back to it. And it happens pretty quick, and it's, some of my best friends growing up, we got into some of the craziest fights too, and
Right.
then, next day it was like, all the boys were like, okay, you guys good? It's like, yeah, we're good. But yeah, we're good. And it was kind of back to normal. I don't see that type of I don't see that as much anymore, even with adults. And I think we've talked about this too before, the swipe left, right, up or down culture, where if you want to be around people that agree with everything you say, you can find that very easily. In fact, a lot of these platforms fill out exactly what you want to find and what it's to give you, and then they give you that. I think that's great in a way, but where's the challenge? Where's the challenge in that? And we should, we just need to do a better job of listening, maybe, to others. I think it'd be good, or get back to our roots like we were children again,
I think some of it too is to elaborate on where you're going, is I think we as a culture don't like discomfort anymore. It's that term I used before, which is the air conditioning thing. We're so used to air conditioning, we don't want to go outside when it's hot. Now, granted, I feel like it has gotten hotter. I feel like environmentally the world has gotten hotter. I feel like socially online we've gotten hotter. Our arguments and our conversations get aggressive very quickly. However, we immediately react to it, and it seems like people react to it in a very aggressive way back. So you have one-to-one, and then we run to air conditioning. We run to that like-minded space again, and we sit inside of that, and then we start getting confirmation bias, and then we don't see ourselves, or we don't see others in truth.
Yeah.
I think that's tricky, because when we stop looking at others' truth and we start looking at what's real for them, then we're definitely not looking at what's real for us. And how can I communicate to you how I feel if I haven't even taken the time to look at that? If I haven't gone dumpster diving to my past, which is a beautiful point you made, and I'm jumping in on it. How can I dumpster dive to my past if I don't even know, I can't identify what that was?
Yeah,
Right.
well, and I think that's interesting too. And I think what you're saying about, because I have a friend who, a really, really good friend of mine. I'm not going to say who it is because she'll know when she hears this, and she might say it out loud. But we have a friend that they keep their house very warm and like at night. And so we had the question, it's like, what temperature do you sleep in? And they're like 78. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, you
Oh
monster.
my gosh.
Like, are you okay? And because there's all these studies that I've seen, like your body goes into a better sleep between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit is what I've read. And Taylor and I like it really cool at night. And the reason I say that too is, one, that was funny. That's a funny thing to me because people have different ways they're comfortable. Some people really, after 10 years or so living down here, I'm effing sick of the heat.
Right.
Like people are like, why is it 40 degrees in your house? It's like, because I've been sweating my nuts off for 9 months straight. And, so I think your body kind of adapts to things, and then people have different preferences. But in regards to heat and everything, it's like, you tell me, let's go outside in 115 degree weather. Let's get 10 people that disagree and have the conversation out there for 2 hours. Or let's do the same conversation as it's 68 degrees inside a home, sitting at a table. Which conversation do you think is going to go better?
That's right. That's a great point.
And I was thinking that too, because and it kind of relates to, and I'm mentioning West Wing again because I'm watching it again right now and I love it. But Sam Seaborn, the attorney for the White House, was getting ready to walk in the Oval Office, and he was pissed. And Kobe said, "You never go in the Oval Office upset. You never go in there angry. You never go in there hot." And I think that kind of relating that to maybe our interactions with other human beings. Maybe nighttime is not the best time to deal with issues. Maybe the afternoon at 2:30, a time when the sun's still out, we're still in a good mood, and we're in a comfortable space, rather than we're at home, we're supposed to be with our families, and we're jawing it out. I don't even know if jawing it out is a term, but we're yelling it out.
I've never heard it.
I've never have. You just heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Jawing it out is a new term. Let's put it in the Edster dictionary. But I think, I think that goes with social media too. If you get ready to pull open Facebook or TikTok and you're already ready to fight somebody, you're already hot, you're already ready to get into it with somebody, maybe you should just put your phone down. You know,
I just did.
I'm sorry. Saying that, dude. That was awful talk. Put your phone down, Drew.
I wanted to tell you that that jawing is a term, and it means to talk for a very long time.
Oh, there we go. We're jaws out.
We should change
out,
the name
baby.
of this podcast.
Jaws out, claws out.
Wow.
I like that. Jaws out, claws out.
So that goes into this things we've said. All right. So if we're looking back to this dumpster fire, if we think about a dumpster, or not dumpster fire, but we're going dumpster diving. If we think of a dumpster, what's the first image that popped? What's Chat GPT say? It's going to describe it. But what's the first image that Ed GPT says about a dumpster? What comes to mind to you for a dumpster?
Well, honestly, I just haven't done so much work in the restaurant industry and stuff. It's not really a thought. It's like this internal scent between my nose and my somewhere in my sinuses. I know exactly what they all smell like everywhere when they've been emptied. So that it's not good.
Right. It's not good. But then there is a truth that sometimes things get thrown away that shouldn't be thrown away.
Yes. Yeah.
Fair statement.
That takes me back to, I worked for Panera, which was originally St. Louis Bread Company everywhere. But then people in Detroit were like, why the hell would I want to go to St. Louis Bread Company? So it turned into Panera. And they used to, they might still do it in some way, but they used to donate all the bread that was left over every single night. And they also let the employees take home. And that really helped me at that time. Take home the leftover paninis and stuff like that. But then people started taking advantage of it, and then no one really knew where the bread went anymore.
Yeah, so they're broadcasting now that they still give it away. But I guess my point was, if you were starving and you went to that dumpster and there was bread that was wrapped, like not contaminated, and it was there, you're going to grab that, and that's manna from the heavens, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So then there's the whole idea that we've thrown something away that maybe we shouldn't have. So maybe there's a memory or an emotion or a moment that we've been like, I'm throwing it. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm throwing it away. And then sometimes we realize we should have, we overlooked something. I think about it sometimes as like, it's not regret or regret as much as it is the idea that maybe I just dismissed this person's emotion or thought or feeling, and I got to go back in. So that means I got to go back. I got to go dumpster diving within myself to find that moment. I can talk about the David guy that I talked about a long time ago, my friend, that I don't have anymore. And I could talk about that. Like, there's a dumpster there that I'm just not ready to go get into yet. Right.
Yeah.
I need to go dumpster diving for that scenario. I'm just not quite ready to. It's pretty gross for me.
Yeah.
It's pretty gross. And I think if we think of it that way, it changes stuff. The reason I wanted to ask you about that is going back is, has there ever been a moment, a specific one, as specific as you feel like making, where you went dumpster diving in your life and you came across something that just, you can pull it out, but it was like a failure that just rode with you. Have you ever had one? Do you have one?
Failure of mine personally?
Sure. Or artistically, creatively, is there any of that sort of?
Yeah. So I guess there's, like I said, I spend a lot of time analyzing and things, and I don't think that's always a good thing. I think that can actually be really bad, and I think that can also put you into a headspace where I guess I have a fear of abandonment in a way, and just because some things that have happened to me in my life. But I think at some point it's really hard too, because if you go back, okay, you have a relationship with somebody and the relationship's kind of screwed up and people are mad at people. And then you start kind of reliving it. I try and go back to make it better. I don't try and go back to make it worse or to convince myself that shit is bad, because I already fucking know it's bad. And I think there's sometimes the other side of that, where people are going back to convince themselves that see, I was right and this was bad. I don't really try and approach things like that until it gets really frustrating, and it becomes this, if you had a real relationship with somebody and then all of a sudden it's gone to the shitter or the dumpster, we'll say, and then we pull back and there's maybe one party trying to fix it. At what point, if it was real, the relationship that you had, do you guys try and come together and fix it? Now, what I've noticed in my life too is I might spend so much time fixing it, and then it gets to a point where it's like, if it came back now, I'd be like, what the fuck? What are you doing coming back now? Like, and where does that circle end? I know I'm a very forgiving person, for sure. I think.
Are you forgiving or forgetful?
I'd prefer to forget it. I would rather, people in my past and stuff, I'd rather just be like, can we just forget anything bad ever happened and move forward?
Right.
I think that applies to me personally. I think it's a little bit different I know it's a little bit different, and there's a few more steps that need to be taken if it's affected my wife or my daughter.
No, I understand that. I guess for me, I'm not smart enough to be a forgiving person. I'm a forgetful person. I can't remember what someone's done to piss me off like 3 days later. I just can't even remember. But then, not directly, but then if I go digging for it, it'll fire up that memory. And I'm like, oh, I guess I forgave him for that. But like, even then I still, like, I haven't done the active, my problem with forgetfulness is I don't actively make the decision to go, I'm letting go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a blessing and a curse on both sides, I guess, is my point. And it's not so like literally binary. It's not a 0 or 1, but there is this idea that to me, that most people I know fall into one of those two categories when they, to your point.
Yeah. And I guess maybe now that I'm thinking about it and the way you said it, that I'm very, very quick to forgive. I don't even really need a sorry. I just need an action, because I've had sorry said to me, enough times in my life that I realized that a lot of the times it doesn't really mean it. More so actions do. And it's kind of a dismal way to look at it, but that's my experience. So it is what it is. And I'm very quick to forgive, but I don't think I ever forget. I don't think I ever do forget, but I understand what you're saying too. It's like, what even the worst situations I could think of in my life with the people I thought I was closest to that I won't have anything to do with us anymore, or whatever. The worst part of it is I don't fucking know what happened.
Oh, same.
And
I'm with you.
it's like, hey, I'll apologize for whatever. Just please tell me what happens, or let's get it done. And I think that goes back to and a common theme here with a lot of the people is my I had a brother. I grew up with a brother, so we dealt with it, and we dealt with it. He was younger than me, but he's bigger than me, and uh, uh, we got it over with, pretty quick. And if we didn't, when we got together, we just make our smart ass remarks, and then let's get it handled and move on with our lives. And I think that's better. I often think, if you look at the people around you, think of, you might not feel it at this point in your life or whatever, but think how many blessings. I was watching an interview with Stephen Colbert last night. Somebody was interviewing him, and I just saw a little clip, and he was talking about how thankful he is for all the terrible things that have happened in his life, because existence is a blessing, and you have to be careful. You should be thankful for existence in general, and you don't get to pick and choose what you're thankful for, which is a very interesting way of looking at things. How talk about the dumpster. I've dug through that dumpster before for food, and I've been at that point in my life, and it's interesting in those situations, and I'm very blessed, but I've been through some hard things, and just like everybody, but how blessed I was to have a dumpster with the stuff in it, and I think that's a way of looking at it. And I think sometimes with people who have gone through, my mother-in-law, she'll love hearing this too. I can picture her laughing right now, and she's going to be here later tonight too. I'm excited to tell her this, but one of the best things that she taught me was that early on in Taylor and I's marriage, because there would be times I'd be talking to her, I'm like, gosh, Taylor thinks this is such a big deal, and it's really not. And she's like, hey, just because it's not a big deal to you based off your life experience or what you've been through doesn't mean it's not a massive deal to her. You can't, she wasn't like siding with Taylor. It was her and I talking. She was just made a really good point. I was like, well, like when I look at that analytically, it's like, well, this is far worse than this is. It's like, yeah, well, shut up and quit looking at it that way. Basically, look at it as, this is an issue for your wife. It should be an issue for you too. And that really helped me a lot early on in my marriage. And I think I needed that. And I don't know how everyone's mother-in-law is, but mine's fantastic. But one of the most fantastic parts is she challenges me and makes me a better person. I don't always like it, but I'm not supposed to effing always like it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's my thing about the dumpster dive is like, you're literally climbing into the trash receptacle. A restaurant dumpster is the worst. You're climbing into that, and you're looking for, that's the point. You're getting in there just to see what's in there. And sometimes I had friends that were, I had a friend that opened like one of those stores, like a rebuy store. I forget what they call them, but he would go dumpster diving, find really amazing things that were thrown away. It wasn't all the time. It's not like he wasn't finding the dumpster pot of gold everywhere he went, so to speak.
Yeah.
But he would find stuff, and when he would find it, he knew what it was worth, and he could turn around and resell it and clean it up, obviously, and resell it. And so this guy opened up a little business doing that. Good for him. Like, he took it and figured it out. That's the reality for me, is that sometimes we go into these spots where we're going to hit this nasty stench as soon as you open the doors and you step into this thing. But then a moment being in there just to check, next thing you know, there's something valuable. I'm not saying you got to clean your dumpsters. I've recently seen that commercial. I think it was like the Progressive commercial where it's like, don't be like your parents. And it's a dad washing out a trash can. Like, what is the purpose of that? I'm not saying we have to go down that path. Oh, it's brilliant. Those are brilliant. But but I do think it's not the end of the world. Like if you find yourself going dumpster diving, to maybe not just immediately react and jump out, which is what I work on, but maybe look around for a minute. And if it starts to get overwhelming, get out, find a way out, make sure you got your totem, flip that top or whatever it is you got to get to it.
Yeah. And it makes me think too, Drew, about the stranger on the plane, stranger on the airplane, how amazing. Some of the best conversations I've had in my entire life are on a plane, because you can talk about things that maybe you're afraid to. So finding somebody that can be there for you. I know that I try and educate myself every day in some way, whether it be, well, mostly it's reading, digital reading. I don't think there's I like a book, but books hurt my eyes for some reason sometimes when I'm reading them, or they make me more sleepy. And I like the screen. It's probably because I'm supposed to like the screen to get ad revenue for all the companies that are pushing it. But that's a whole other thing. But I really like reading and listening to people who I think not even necessarily or maybe smarter or more educated on stuff. It's just like listening to people's life journeys and listening to them talk about hard things is important. And I'm very lucky to be blessed with Taylor, and who's a licensed therapist. And so that helps. I'm sure that's not good for her all the time, knowing what I'm saying, but what I actually probably am feeling and meaning. She probably knows those things, but she, poor thing. But I think it is important to, if you think a lot about the past, or you're thinking about the past, do you think it's better to think about it by yourself and talk to yourself about it? Or do you think it'd be better to think about it with someone else and talk to them about it?
Well, maybe I take all of our podcasts and they get stored in my brain. Maybe I led that conversation. Maybe I was a little too harsh on individuals that were, to use my term, waxing nostalgic. Maybe they weren't just trying to relive it, but maybe they were trying to process through it.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think there's anything wrong with what you said. I know that, I think it's good. I think what you said is important. I think what everyone's opinions on it are. I think the way you get to understanding is trying to talk and understand, because I haven't thought about everything the way you do, where you haven't thought, of course not, because I'm not you. And it's amazing when you really think about it. It's like, you're not going to think about it like me. Well, multiply that by every single effing human in the entire world. No one thinks about things exactly the same way.
Right.
And I read something last night that I thought was really, really interesting. And if there's anything that I think shouldn't be divisive in this world, it's this. It was as Americans, but as human beings, I think there's a lot more things that unite us than fucking divide us. There's a lot more things that unite us as Americans than divide us. Now, and that's as human people. It's like, now if you turn the news on, you're going to see the one thing that divides us, or the other thing that divides us, or the stuff, because a fight is fun sometimes, guys. And that's okay. We're animals too. Okay. Oh. And we just we're not that much different. In fact, I think we're worse. We're becoming worse than a lot of the animals. We know what animals do. You ever seen the turtles in the zoo or the monkeys? They've got a few things they do. And there's a lot more. Why don't we focus on the things that unite us more? Maybe just imagine one day the whole world would agree. People say it'll never happen. Of course it never will, but it could. And I do believe it could, where the whole world came together just one day and was like, you know what? Let's just be nice today. It's required. Everybody's going to be nice. Well, I hate you, but we're going to be nice to each other today. Okay, I hate you too, but let's be nice. And imagine
you're talking about the opposite of The Purge.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where everybody's like, instead of, I haven't seen that movie because it kind of scares, the music scared me or something. But the idea would be, I guess that'd be also equally scary if all of a sudden you walked out your front door and everybody's like handing out flowers to everybody. Would be like, what?
Well, I mean, if you knew about it, if you didn't know about it, it's like, yeah, welcome to the nice. Sure. And then everyone's like, hi, Ed, good to see you. And it's all like fake. That's a different thing. But I love your point. I love where you're going with it. Like this idea that if we all took upon ourselves to go that route.
I think it'd be if you took all the adults in the world and made them 2-3 years old. I bet the world that now a few things might go wrong, but I think the world would be a little bit kinder that day.
So how do you think we pursue something like that? Because it's easy. I think sometimes it's easy for us because we get into this philosophical bubble and we have these debates, but what are actionable steps? Because that's the challenge, is to say, what's an actionable step for you to pursue this idea? We've talked about it before, the 1% nicer, 1% friendlier, being nicer in general, whatever. But what are the steps? How do you take those steps? Because it's got to happen. There's got to be a process to it.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult thing, and of course, I said it. I do believe in. I have my faith, and I believe in good, and having faith and believing good means I also believe in evil. And there is a lot of evil in this world, but I think it starts in your neighborhood. I think that's the easiest way. I think it starts with your neighbor, I mean, it makes my stomach feel weird right now, but like, just think if you walked out of your house, knocked on your neighbor's door and they're like, what's up? Like, I was just wondering if you're doing okay today. Right. Imagine what would happen after that. It's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Are you okay? It's like, yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted to check on you. Imagine like when they close the door and they think about that. Think about those few seconds, and it sure it'd be awkward, of course, but also it's like 2 weeks down the road, they might knock on your door and be like, how you doing? And you might not be okay. And then all of a sudden you have somebody to talk to. So I think
in some cases though, can't we be digital neighbors that way though? Can't we make the argument for a digital community and be digital neighbors that way?
Yes. And I think that's why I'm here, is because of all my, I know it is because of my digital neighbors, and they were neighbors we could have when we couldn't have any, during COVID. I don't know if I said this before, and I mean this in the way that I'm going to define it, but I miss parts of COVID because I saw a community so together. Virtual community that was so together and was giving everyone signs of hope. And I don't see it nearly as much anymore because everybody's got, I can't tell you how many times I get on a live. People are like, oh my gosh, what about this news or that news or that, this or that? And I don't really know anything about it. And I actually, since I downloaded some of the social, I read my news and some of it, but I try and read positive news. And I live in the real world. I understand that, but also it's like, I don't need 2 hours download of how bad the world is every day. I'd rather spend 15 minutes trying to tell somebody I love them and make them feel it's okay. Gonna be okay somehow.
Well, that's the old news adage, right? If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you think about it, it's just this process of, a lot of news content or any content, again, ties all back into what we've been saying is like, and I learned from the show. So don't anybody mistake that I'm coming in here with knowledge. I'm coming in here with an open conversation. That's that's really the secret, is an open conversation that I learned stuff. But like, I remember I cut out all news. I cut it all out, and I did it successfully for about 8 months. I had no idea what was going on in the world. And this was fairly recent. I did not know that Russia had invaded Ukraine. So some people will be aghast that I'm not paying attention, that maybe that seems insensitive. I did not know. I mean, there's multiples. Whatever was happening in that window, I had no idea any of these things were happening. You know what I did know is that I was much jollier, and I was talking to my neighbor, and I was spending time with people, having conversations, not thinking about that exact, not getting caught in the trap. I didn't have a 2-hour news cycle. I even was able to communicate to my father, who is just trapped in I mean, unfortunately, so many people are, but he's trapped in the TV news box. Where all he does is just watch TV news, and they feed the same story over and over again, which creates confirmation bias, which creates, if it's a negative story, then you're just being fed the same negativity over and over again.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So I'm with you on it. Can I ask for something so that maybe I think through this conversation, I'd like to maybe take the last little bit of time here for us to work together on a little project here.
Okay.
And I think what that project is what can we agree upon are 3 really good rules for when you go dumpster diving? What would 3 rules be for dumpster diving? And that can be real dumpster diving or metaphorical. Can we talk through those? Like, what's rule number 1? What's something to think about that you need to know before you go dumpster diving?
The first one that pops into my head is set a time limit. Set a time limit, because it's very easy to get in a hole for a very long time. That's the first one that pops into my head, and metaphorical sense.
But I think that's a literal too. I mean,
yeah. You want to set a time limit for sure.
So can we both agree though that maybe the first one is prepare yourself for it's going to stink?
Yeah, it's going to suck. Yeah,
it's going to be unpleasant. It's going to be unpleasant.
Going to be unpleasant for sure.
All right. So I'm just going to make a note. I love time limit. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. So listen, it's going to be unpleasant. You don't want to get stuck in there. So make a time limit. Maybe that's rule number 1.
Yep. Number 2. Maybe not setting bad expectation, or not setting unreasonable expectations for yourself. Maybe, you might not go in that dumpster and find a diamond. You might find a loaf of bread, but that loaf of bread might lead you to something better. So
so what if it's
expectations? Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe if it's I'm just simplifying because I'm dumb. Maybe it's you might find something, or you might not.
I like that. You might find something. That's a positive outlook. Yeah, you might find something. That could be good or bad, but you might find something.
Yeah, you might find nothing. Maybe it's a rabbit hole that goes nowhere. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
All right, so number 3.
I would say if you're searching in the dumpster, maybe you're looking for something lost. The only thing better than something lost is something found. So anything that you do find is something found, and that you should be proud of yourself. Like take pride in, I think what's good too is if you follow the rules and you have 3 rules and everything, you've done something right. You've followed the rules that you've set for yourself, and that's something to be proud of, even if it hurts. And if whatever you found is really hurting you, the good thing is you have a fucking time limit, and you only get so much time. You're only allowed so much time in your day to think about that and compartmentalize it, and then go back to it.
All right. I'm going to refine them. So we tagline them, right? So we workshop them in. The first one, we talked about it's going to be unpleasant, set a time limit, right?
Yep.
So what if it's embrace the stank?
Embrace the stank. I like that. I'm writing that down. That sounds weird. Embrace the stank.
Right?
Never thought I'd be writing that down today. We should rename the podcast Embrace the Stank.
Hold on. What does that intro sound like? Ready? Are you doing it? I'm Barf. He's Puke. And welcome to Embrace the Stank.
I'm Biff. He's Chip. Biff and Chip. Welcome to Embrace the Stank. Embrace the Stank.
Limit yourself.
Limit yourself number 2, or that's Embrace the Stank.
That was Embrace the Stank. Limit yourself. And then number 2 is you might find something.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
So you might find something. And listeners, when you hear this little pause, that is us actually writing this. We're workshopping this with you. We're doing this as a fam. And I'll get to the fun part, I think, towards the back half. And I really love the idea. If we think about, this is interesting that you brought this up. If we think about typically, if we are saying who goes dumpster diving, normally, like in the real world, if someone's going dumpster diving, you're usually, I think most people would think of someone desperate, someone in trouble, someone who's probably hasn't tied a tie in a while to loop that back in, or somebody, right? So it's really fascinating to me that being proud of yourself, being rule number 3, isn't just about being proud that you did it. I think it's also being proud that you're going in there in your best suit. You're going in for it. Like you're making the commitment to do it.
Yeah.
And you're going to come out and be proud, but you're also, you're committing to that idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I can't think of when you hear somebody tell a story of something hard they've been through, it's not easy getting in a dumpster.
That's exactly right.
You know, I mean, if you think it is, you haven't been in one. You know, and that's I think it's odd because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about social media just because, you know, I'm thinking about my family online, my online family. And it's interesting too. If you get ready to open up TikTok or whatever, it's like, be ready to embrace the stank because you know you're going to run into some of it.
2, limit yourself.
Yeah, limit yourself. 2, you might find something good. Wow. You might not. And 3, be proud of yourself when you put the phone, you know, if you do, but don't be surprised that it might stink a little. That's what oddly, it's what it does. And you know that going in. So I think, and maybe number 4, well, be proud of yourself. And then those are the rules. It's like, so what's the big question after all of that? What are you going to do with it? You know, maybe what are we going to do with, I think in ways, you know, good things in a dumpster, bad things in a dumpster. That kind of sounds like life kind of summed up, doesn't it?
What if we make it an engagement in that conversation and we say, so Ed, I see you. And you said, dude, I went diving. I'm like,
yeah,
what would I ask you? Cause I'm your friend. The first thing I would be like, how was it? I'm now engaging you to tell me, if you want, how that scenario was.
Yeah.
If you'd gone dumpster dive, I'm actively listening. I'm literally engaging by just asking that question. How was it? And you can say whatever you want. Cause that's one of those questions where you can be like, good. I'm like, okay. Or you could say, it was tough. And if I'm your friend, I'm going to say, do you want to talk about it? Or do we need to talk about it? Should we talk about it? Or I'm going to sit there in silence and just look at you. I had a friend the other day. I realized this. We talked about the male side the other day. I'm a communicator, so are you. And I think you taught me this, but I didn't think about it till it happened. I wish I would have thought about it rather when it happened. He was very, very manly man, military fellow, good dude. And he'd opened up to me before. He started telling me something. And instead of me just sitting and listening, I decided to lean in and be like, are you okay? But as soon as I said that, it caused a shift in him, and I should have paid attention. And then he walled up because that reminded him of vulnerability. But if I would have just sat there with my first, I'm not going to cuss, and this will be a cuss-free episode. If I would have sat there with my flapping mouth closed, he probably would have had a better chance. I probably could have helped him more. So I think that one little question, maybe to your point, is what's the question afterwards is how was it? That's for yourself or anybody else.
Yeah, and I think a way you have to be careful with that, because I've done a lot of that myself, where I felt terrible guilt over the years for not being able to help everyone. And my DMs, like I said, are a pretty sad place, terribly sad. And after a year or two of it, I just had to stop for a minute and not look and put my phone down and feel pardon me, but just feel miserable about it myself. And part of it is too, where not your buddy specifically, but part of it is too, I think a lot of men have a hard time talking about their feelings, which I understand it's not easy, but it gets easier if you start doing it. And I would consider probably the biggest dumpster that a lot of men that I've met aren't interested in doing, because they don't know how to. And
right.
I think it's interesting too when other people try and help them, or maybe you're married to a man, or you're with a man or whatever, or married woman, it doesn't really matter. But if you have somebody around you who doesn't like talking about their feelings, chances of you being able to convince them the way you want to do it is the way that they should probably won't work out, because it's their feelings. The only way you can honestly talk about your feelings is if they're coming from your heart. So finding a way where it's okay, where it's somebody doesn't want to talk about their feelings, that's not your fault. But knowing that it's like, hey, I think it's a good idea you talk about your feelings. And even we talk about this, it's like, if you don't believe in something bigger than yourself, and just find something, whatever it is. And a good way to look at it is find somebody to talk honestly about your feelings to, that you're comfortable with sharing those. And if you don't, if you spend your whole life not talking about your feelings, what's your whole life about? And I think that's very interesting. I never really thought about it that way. And it's like, if nobody really knows what your feelings are, who really are you? I don't know. I think how can you tell somebody someone's story? Like, if I wasn't here and nobody knew how I felt about anything, how would Evelyn ever know who I am?
That's right. Well,
who I was,
That's the interesting side of human beings and that oratory tradition.
Mm-hmm.
It is built in us DNA to share. It's built into us, a story of some capacity. And I think everybody, even the loneliest individual on earth, still shares something, whether we realize it or not, or has the urge to share. And given the opportunity, they will share. And it may not be the most in-depth, deep, game-changing scenario, but the nature of us is to share those stories.
Yeah, well, and I think this is interesting too, and this might piss some people off, but that's okay if it does. They're my feelings, and you can have yours. But we spend a lot of time talking about our feelings about other things that are going on, instead of talking about our own feelings about those things that are happening. I think back to our primitive days. You think we weren't expressing our feelings out there hunting? You think everybody didn't have their opinions and weren't saying them to get food and expressing how they felt about how things were at the camp effectively? No. And also, it's like your feelings from your heart about you are important. There's tons of people who express their feelings or their opinions about something. Feelings, I don't think, You know, I think for me too, it's like when I say I'm upset, it's like, well, I understand you're upset, but it's like, no, it's not up for negotiation. There's not my feelings aren't, me being upset is not something that you can convince me that I'm not feeling, because that's very real and raw. And it's like, well, you'll be okay. It's like, based off what?
Right.
What do you, I think people are too quick to say, you're going to be fine.
Yep.
It's when you say that to somebody who's not doing okay, you're like, no, they're screaming inside, I'm not. Or I'm not feeling okay. And you gotta, you know, and it's their responsibility too, at that point, to express it in an appropriate and a respectful way. Where has the respect gone for our fellow human being? Because we don't have to do it anymore. It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement to be respectful. And in a lot of the entertainment and a lot of the things that we see, it's not a requirement. In fact, you get more attention by not being respectful. That's where it needs to turn. I think it'd be better for humanity if it went that way.
No, I'm with you.
And I'm sorry, but a lot of us, sorry, Drew, but I'm like flying on this now. A lot of us respect some random person at Target more than we do some of the closest people around us in our lives. Now, what does that say? I have no idea.
Good punchy truth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let that linger. We're gonna let that linger.
Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger?
Oh, Dolores.
You know I'm such a fool for you. Sorry.
So if you would like to join us in the Riverside, if you don't know what that is, when the show premieres, we have a chat afterwards. Often, if we don't, we'll tell you, but we often have a chat afterwards. The link is posted inside of the show premiere. The show is premiering right now if you're watching it, or if you're listening to this and you would like to join us, it premieres Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Mountain, and 6 p.m. California.
We know 100% for sure it's 8 Central Standard Time. This is where you, as adults that are listening right now, if we've said something wrong, you know what? We make mistakes, and you can be responsible and get back here 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, wherever that relates to you, anywhere in the world.
On Wednesdays.
On Tuesday nights.
No, don't do that.
Wednesdays.
You're going to do that on Wednesdays on YouTube. You can find us over there. Head over and you can hang out. You can join us in the Riverside chat afterwards, as long as they let us have it. We'll see how long that goes. I think we're going to get kicked out eventually, but we're going to keep going with that. And we will talk about these 3 rules. Maybe other people have other ideas and we can add them all together and make the ultimate set of rules for dumpster diving. How about that?
Heck yeah. I loved it.
Well, thank you for hanging out. Don't forget to go ahead and plug it, Ed. Go ahead and let's get the old spiel. Why don't you fire up that spiel there?
You want me to play us out? To play us out?
Just play.
What does that
play
mean?
Us out.
To play us out. Thank you for joining us this evening. Guys, if we don't get the teleprompter right, to play us out, if you see that video, ladies, she got eyes on the bluest sky. Bow, 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 bow.